50 years later, and he still has his teeth. Here's a look at the brand new Hiya Toys, the Texas Chainsaw Massacre Exquisite Mini Leatherface. Based on the new sequel to the original film, this Texas Chainsaw Massacre Leatherface is presented in 1/18th scale and features 15 points of articulation. No, I'm sorry, the horrors come with the house. Before we get a closer look at the brand new Hiya Toys, Leatherface from the brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, not liked by some, but liked by the person behind the camera, I'd like to first thank the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample we're about to have a look at. Grabbing, as always, the old tape measure. Leatherface in this case stands 4 1/4 inches in height. Yes, he does. Or the figure is going to stand about 11 centimeters in height. Leatherface may be feeling a bit bored, as that's one of the included accessories. The figure comes included with a display stand that has the floorboarding. I'm here all day. They could have used this. They could have also used a display stand that actually would have had flattened down sunflowers. But I think this is actually the better of the two. The color of this is sort of like a mahogany wood. Somebody who knows a little bit more about the colors of wood probably could tell me down below in the comment section if that's correct or not. But I can tell you there's a few little scratches, wear and tear to that. I'm not sure inflicted by a chainsaw or not, or just natural age. There is a peg that's onto the side of this that can then plug into either one of Leatherface's boots. You only have one peg, but you have 2 holes, so you have to choose wisely. It does have slots provided here on all the sides. If anybody has followed these Hiya Toy reviews on my channel, thank you for that, by the way. You already know what these are going to be for. For those new here, you get yourself these eye brackets, capital I to be exact. And what you do is you take them and you slot them in those provided openings. And then if you have multiple display stands, you can plug them all together this way, this way, this way, and this way until you get yourself a larger display. We will, though, just a quick tease that we will be also looking at the exclusive version of Leatherface that has a lot more saturation of blood than what you're seeing right now. He may or may not come included with a head of melody. Okay, he comes with a head of melody. On to the rest of the accessories. I hate to have spoiled that. The figure comes included with these tiny little hands. They do serve a purpose. They will be, of course, there to help hold the chainsaw. Because as of right now, he only has relaxed hands. If you did want to change the hands, they're fairly easy. You're just going to hold onto the forearm and just wiggle the hand from the post. Careful, though, doing this because the posts are quite small. Then from there, of course, following still the same formula, you're going to have the thumbs facing inward. Just going to plug those back into place. Just like that. And now he has the means to hold the chainsaw. You could rinse and repeat and have it on this side as well, but I find really one relaxed hand is more than enough to hold the other handle of the chainsaw. Speaking of chainsaws, all this talk we've been doing of it, let's get the figure to stand here. The figure also comes included with what seems to be an already used chainsaw. He's pulled it from the wall, and it looks like by the drippings of blood, Leatherface has already begun his manslaughtering. Just cutting down people. Cancel this guy? Very unlikely. He's going to be canceling all of you instead. You can see the teeth have been colored with a wash of black. You can also see as well they've speckled on, not only dripping down the blood, but also splashing the blood on either side of it. That's a nice looking chainsaw. I like that it's got a lot of wear to it too. Again, it's got a little bit of dirtiness that they've washed to it. Although this part of the chainsaw seems a little more cleaner of the two. It sort of goes from dirty, and it's clean in the middle. It's sort of like a clean sandwich. But what you will do, though, is just simply take the chainsaw, fit this into his hand. I did already mention that you don't necessarily need to have 2 gripping hands for the figure. Just pry the fingers away from the palm there. There we go. And then from there, you just sort of bend the elbow. And then you just sort of, well, you can kind of just slot the hand in the handle of the chainsaw. And that's more than enough. He sort of awkwardly holds it in the movie, played by Mark Burnham. Well, actually, I thought he did a pretty good job of being an older Leatherface. It was a little questionable about the kind of mask that he wore and how it even really managed to stick onto his face. Was it just blood and spit? He just spat on the mask and it just sort of stuck to his face. I don't think it really works that way, but either way, you can go ahead. Let's just, for right now at least, remove the chainsaw because I just don't want to drop that. Getting a closer look at Leatherface here. Now, this again is the standard version of Leatherface. We will be looking at the more bloodier version. Whether or not it will come included with the melody, I've already disclosed it will come included with the melody head sculpt. But I like this head quite a lot. While I may not think that this is a good-looking Leatherface mask, I do think the way they've painted it is really nice. It's got a sheen to it, whether that's just the rain falling down on his head, whether it's just sweat, whether it's just entrails or guts or whatever else that's splashing onto his face. But I think that the head sculpt is handled really well. It's harder to, of course, make out the eyes because they're so dark, and obviously the sockets are so dark as well. He's got a little bit of a drooping face. I honestly don't even know how this was able to be the original head sculpt of, I think, not his mother, but his caretaker. It was like Mrs. MC, Alice Craig, excuse me, was the one that actually played her. But I don't even know how this face would have been then big enough, whether he cut it off of her forehead or not, how it would be big enough to even fit over his larger face. I have no idea. But I do like the sculpting that they've done to the hair. There doesn't seem to be much in the way of blood on this, in the hair at least area, but there's a whole lot of it also all over his face. Now he does have an apron in this case. The apron is not something that can be removed. In fact, when you're looking at it, they sort of did cheat a little bit. I'm going to move the arms up just a little bit so you guys can actually see. The apron, while it is really tied up here to the back, or at least supposed to give you the suggestion that it's tied up, if you actually lift behind the curtain, you realize that the great and powerful Oz is in fact just sculpted strings on either side. It is only seeming to be attached here by the top, so just be careful of that. They obviously left it open like this, I would imagine, just so you could get some articulation from the figure. And he actually has quite a lot, 15 points of articulation when it's all said and done. The apron sits a little wide on the figure. I suppose you probably could heat this up just a little bit, and if you want to like curve it back a little bit more than what it is right now. I like, again, the darker color. Everything on Leatherface is either dark, dingy, brown, grays, blacks. Everything on him is filthy. Like, just to look at this guy moving around in the movie, he just looks disgusting. But yeah, his apron is more of a softer plastic. Just be, though, again, careful, because I don't imagine, like, it's only probably glued here and it's only probably glued there. Lifting this up too frequently may result in ripping the apron away from the top of his torso. And again, it's also just going to make it a lot wider, too, when you're looking at it. The figure does have a tie that's also made of the same sort of material. It's a little softer, in fact, than actually the apron that he has. The apron's kind of a little more of a harder plastic. The tie is a little bit more of like a softer plastic. Rolled up sleeves, very nicely discolored. Everything, again, on this guy is just absolutely gross. I like the dark brown that they've used for the back of the body. They've also added some darker shadowing in there as well, so just to add some nice contrasting colors. But the only thing that's really clean on Leatherface is actually his pants. There doesn't seem to be blood. There doesn't seem to be dirt or grime. And his boots actually are pretty clean as well. One does have the longer pant leg draped over top. The other one actually shows the full boot there. I did notice, though, when it came to the figure, that his articulation in his ankle sort of does give him a little more problems when it comes to him standing. Especially this ankle here. Bending it up the way that I am right now, you can kind of see it already snaps back, but it snaps back not on a level, but rather it sits on more of an angle. So I've noticed actually when getting this guy to stand without the use of his display stand, they sort of does have a harder time to stand. It's almost as if the figure needed a display stand. Oh wait, yeah, we got one right here. So of course that does then just plug into the undersides, just with either one of the holes provided on the bottoms of his boots. For the articulation on this version of Leatherface, did I say this version of Leatherface? I certainly hope I did. Head is on a ball joint. Even though he does have longer hair, it doesn't limit the articulation. At least you can move it this side and this side. That's it. You can have the head looking down only just by a little bit. You can have the head looking up a lot better. Arms rotate all the way around. And not only do they rotate all the way around, but he also has the means to hinge his arms out at what? About 90 degrees. I would say that's about a 90-degree angle bend. The figure has, speaking of bends, double hinges of that in his elbows, and the hands rotate all the way around. Because, again, they've separated the apron from the rest of his body, it means at least when it comes to moving his body, he has an upper torso ball joint. So you can rotate it back and forth, you can rotate it up and down, and you can also rock it back and forth this way as well. So there's quite a lot to work with. The figure also does have, in addition to that, a secondary ball joint that's at the base of his body, kind of where his abdomen, I should say, would be. What's funny, though, is the bottom of his pants. It's only until you actually pick the figure up that you realize that his pants are very soft. Very soft. They're harder plastic here. They're harder plastic in his torso. But I guess they probably put that in there just to kind of conceal the joint, make the articulation still accessible, and still give you a good-looking sculpt. It just means he kind of has a really soft top of his pants. The figure does have a swivel at the top of his thigh. The figure does possess still a double hinge on his knees. And he does have still the articulation in the boots. The boots also do, well, they rotate only just a little bit, but he has also an ankle pivot. If only thing, again, I would say, like, this one ankle right here. I might try to heat this up, but if you, like, look at it, they don't really allot for much space here to the top. So even if you just bring the ankle as far up as you think you may be able to get it, the figure still tends to lean a little further forward, or sometimes he actually even just leans backwards. So of course, that's all the more reason why then to use a display stand. Just take the display stand, plug it into the undersides, just plug at least one of them in because you can't use both. And yeah, it's a good looking Leatherface. I'm really happy with how this one turned out. We are, of course, as already mentioned, probably several times mentioned already, we are going to be looking also at the exclusive version of Leatherface. A lot more soaked in blood and carrying one little extra baggage around with him. No, it's not the chainsaw. He's carrying around something a little bit else as well. Well, we already know he's carrying around Melody's head. His review will be coming up shortly, but I really like the way that this one turned out. I think Hiya Toys has done a bang-up job on maybe not a super popular Leatherface, but one that I certainly enjoyed. Yeah, swinging a chainsaw above your head isn't as easy to do 50 years later. Of course, younger Leatherface could do it without worries. He could be cutting through teens with no problems at all. But older Leatherface has to kind of conserve his energy, be very selectful of who he's actually slaughtering. Who are we kidding? Leatherface was a beast in the brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie. He didn't seem to miss a step as he was hacking and slashing his way through the people of that abandoned town. Translated fairly well, I would say, here to plastic. Smaller scale, of course, but it's one of the few companies when you think about it. I mean, other than Mego, I can't think of any other company that's actually approached the Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 movie, which I think is actually redundant to say that because I think Texas Chainsaw Massacre was sitting in limbo for a couple of years. So it wasn't technically in 2022, but that's eventually when we did get it. Needless to say, Hiya Toys stepped up the plate and gave us a smaller scale version of Leatherface. Figure turned out really good. The colors are nice on this guy. I like the dark, grimier browns that they've added to his suit, his apron, of course, and then the slimier, kind of wet look that he has to his mask. Now, of course, it does rain quite a lot in the movie, so that's one of the reasons why he may be a little wet like this. It could also just be the fact it's just guts, blood, and all the other things that would settle on his mask as he's killing all the people remaining in the town. The figure has quite a lot in the way of articulation, 15 points to be exact. So not only can you get double hinges in his elbows working and allowing the figure to have the chainsaw swinging above his head, but you can also pose this guy in a more running pose. I didn't happen to do that right now because of course, he only has the one peg attached onto the display stand. So it really does come to a point where, like, you can only move him so much for obvious reasons. There's a big bulky bit of plastic that he has to carry around with him. Happens to all of us. So it may not be the easiest thing to have him running. And I don't think Leatherface in his age, again, who are we kidding? The guy was running around and just doing everything that a person of his age really shouldn't have been able to do in the movie, but we can kind of bypass all of that because, of course, it is Leatherface. What do you guys think of the figure? Let me know down below in the comments section. Once again, a big thank you to the folks over at Hiya Toys that did provide this sample of the brand new Texas Chainsaw Massacre 2022 Leatherface regular version. I have to put that in brackets, at least say it as if there was brackets on either side of this, because of course we are going to be looking at the exclusive bloodied version of Leatherface in an upcoming review. If in the meantime, though, you guys enjoyed the video you just finished watching, why not throw it a like? If you guys are loving the content you guys are seeing and certainly want to stick around to see the exclusive version of Leatherface, blood and all, make sure if you haven't already done so that you hit that subscribe button down below, yes, and that you're also turning on the bell notification, sure. Popping up also at the very end of this video. If you have, of course, a little bit of time to kill, I just realized what I said there. Popping up at the very end of this video will also be a playlist of all the other things I've looked at for Hiya Toys in the past, the present, which is now, and then in the future, the things that are about to be posted here on this channel. Lots of stuff coming your way, guys. So as always, thanks for watching. See you guys next time.